do dogs benefit children in terms of their emotional well-being? How do they help a child who may be finding things difficult in terms of their anxiety, for example, or confidence?
Well, dogs have a special sense of, I think all animals have, but dogs, especially because they have this certain connection with people, they just sense things, they actually smell things. It's amazing how how much they smell. They smell more colors than we can see with our eyes.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so they have around 300 million smell receptors, while we only have about 5 million.
Wow.
So you can imagine when a dog smells something, it's like when we have a look at it in the form of a picture, it would be a very sharp picture. Yeah, they see all details. Whereas when we would look with our smell receptors to the same picture, it would be very pixeled picture. We wouldn't even recognize anything.
Oh, wow. I never knew that about dogs. So
Yeah.
so they can sense a child's anxiety and they can
Yeah, and they
sense
can
like when a
smell it.
person's been
They,
anxious.
they,
Oh, they
they
can
can
smell it.
actually
Yes, of
smell
course. You
it.
just said, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So they
Amazing.
can smell it. They can sense it, they can smell it, and then they can, take action. Like some dogs actually want the people to get rid of their fear. I have um, a very interesting story of my dog Nabel. I'm an animal communicator and I teach animal communication. And I used to have a room and people would come and then I would teach animal communication in that room. Nowadays, I do most of the things online.
Hmm.
But back in the days when online, was not very well known, I did a lot of courses in in person, and people would bring their dogs. Not all of them, but some participants would bring their dogs, and obviously my dogs were there as well. So
Hmm.
this woman comes in, and she sees my dogs and stops and says, "Oh, I didn't know there were dogs here." And I go, "Well, they're my dogs, and they're okay. It's nothing to be afraid of. Just come in." And Nabel, one of my dogs, grabs one of his toys, runs up to the woman, and wants to play with her. And
Hmm.
she goes like, no, 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 not really, not really, like sort of not really. And then another participant comes and says to Nabel, "Hey, Nabel, come, I'll play with you." And Nabel goes like, "No, I don't want to play with you," and walks away. So
Hmm.
Nabel didn't want to play with this other woman. Nabel wanted to play with this woman that actually was afraid
That's interesting. Why would that be?
because he wanted the woman to be comfortable. He wanted the woman to lose her
Right.
fear.
Oh, I
So
see.
he sensed that this woman was afraid. This woman
Hmm.
wasn't feeling comfortable. And he grabbed a toy and wanted to play with that woman to make her feel comfortable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what dogs do. They try to make you comfortable.
So this some people are scared of dogs, aren't they? Some children are scared of dogs. So that fear, do you think that's probably come from maybe their upbringing? Their parents may have been fearful of dogs and they don't like being around dogs and just being able to experience being around a natural dog and like understanding how they may be feeling or how they might actually be there to help you rather than to be like to scare you could actually help children, could help their parents even.
Yeah, well, the reason why children or adults are afraid of
Mm,
dogs, I think there are so many, different um, reasons. Some might be that they have had a bad experience with a dog. Maybe
of
some of
course,
them
yes.
were bitten once or whatever.
Mm.
Some of them, some children are afraid of dogs because their parents are afraid of dogs. Like it's transmitted from the parent to the children. Maybe the child is curious, wants to go near a dog, and the parent pulls it away. So
Mm.
no, 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 don't go there, don't go there. And then there are also cultural issues. In some cultures are more afraid of dogs than others. It's amazing.
Wow.
I'm an animal communicator, but I'm also a certified dog trainer.
Mm.
So I've seen this, like it really depends from which country people are, and they approach a dog in one way or in another way.
Mm. Of course, yes. I'm from England. I'm from the UK, and in the UK, we are dog lovers. There are a lot of dogs as pets in the UK. Where are you based currently, Paloma?
I'm in Switzerland.
In Switzerland. So what is it like in terms of Switzerland with dogs and families and children? Are you a
Oh,
nation of dog lovers as well?
yeah, Switzerland is
Yeah.
is a very dog
Mm.
loving country as well. Yes, but
So
we've
do
got
you
people
have
from many cultures here, and
mm,
then you really see the difference how a Swiss person might approach a dog, and a person from another culture would approach a dog.
right, yes, of course. If you have many cultures living in the same area, it's quite you'll be able to see that with people that are when they're going on about their daily business and they've got a dog coming near them, you'll be able to observe how they react with that dog. So in my school currently, we have two therapy dogs. They're being trained currently, and they're only just about going out and about now, going to classrooms to sort of see the children, for the children to get used to their dogs. Do you have therapy dogs in schools in Switzerland at all?
I don't know, but I guess that some
Mm.
of them might come in.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
How does
Hmm.
it benefit children having therapy dogs within school?
Well, I think it is actually important that children learn to interact with
Hmm.
dogs. It's important that they learn how to approach a dog. And as I said before, many parents are afraid of dogs, and they
Yes.
transmit that to the child. Now, if you have a therapy dog coming to the school, then that fear can be addressed. And
Hmm.
like it's another environment, and the children see these other children. Oh, my friend is not afraid of dogs. Well, why are my parents afraid of dog, but my friend is not afraid of that dog? Well, maybe that dog is not that that fearful, like I thought it was. Maybe it's not as dangerous as I thought it was, like. So
Mm.
it children start to make other connections.
Right.
and
Yes, of course.
and I think it's good if there's a therapy dog there. It is a good place to start to understand dogs. Like
Hmm.
how how do you behave around dogs? Maybe also learn the language, the body language of the dogs. Like what are the calming signals of a dog? So I learned with Turit Rugas, and Turit Rugas has written a couple of books. Well, she's written some books, and one of them is called Calming Signals.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
all about the calming signals of dogs. Now, you can use calming signals as a human around dogs as well. So if you use calming signals of a dog around dogs, a dog will understand that body language. So
Okay.
it's a very good way of teaching children in a playful
Mm.
way how they can interact with dogs. By learning the calming signals of a dog, and using the
Mm.
calming signals around dogs themselves.
Yes, and then that'll hopefully break the cycle of if their parents are scared of dogs and the child becomes scared and they grow up to be scared, and that then passed on to their own children. So hopefully, if children become used to dogs in a more controlled way, but more controlled environment, I suppose, where they feel safer, or the child might feel safer because their therapy dog's being introduced to them, maybe that would then help them to become less anxious around dogs. So, what advice, what 10 top tips, I suppose, what main tips would you give us in terms of how to act around a dog if we are potentially fearful because of an experience? Or, for example, my mum used to always say to me, "Oh no, don't go near that dog because we don't know whose dog it is." Like my mum used to say to me all the time. So I'm a little bit um not fearful, but I do sort of question a little bit when I'm around dogs sometimes, unless they're my friends' dogs. But what would you how would you advise us in terms of how we should act around dogs so that we're not fearful of them?
Well, first of all, I would say give them their space.
Hmm.
Don't rush up to the dog and, invade its space. Just stay outside the dog's space and wait for the dog to come to you.
Okay.
So, don't go and say, oh, I have to pet that dog. Oh, I want to pet. Oh, can I pet that dog? Sometimes children come up to me and say, oh, can I
Mm.
pet your dog? And I go like, no. Well, why not? I go, well, would you like a stranger to come and put their hand in your face? No. Well, that's exactly what you're doing to the dog. The dog doesn't know you. You just come up, want to pet your dog. No. And then some children get really angry and sort of like,
Yes.
oh, come on, really? Blah, 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 blah. Well, you have to start to look at the dog as a sentient being, as,
Mm.
it's not you have power over the dog. It's you have to respect the dog. If you want respect from an animal, you have to respect the animal first.
Of course, yeah. So do you think that sometimes, unfortunately, a lot of dogs get disowned, for example, they become stray dogs or they go into the dog pounds because people no longer want them. So do you reckon that is because the lack of communication between the owner and the dog, they don't understand their dog the way they should understand their dog, maybe potentially, which is why it's led to them, unfortunately, getting rid of the dog, sending a dog to a dog pound, unfortunately.
Um, I guess there are a lot of
Mm.
reasons why that happens.
Mm.
But obviously, some of the reasons are, unfortunately, that people have not thought it through before they get the dog. I mean, you really should think it through thoroughly. What does it mean to get a dog? A dog is a
Mm.
responsibility for at least 15 years if you get a puppy. I mean, I've got a
Yes, of
dog, she's
course.
20,
Mm.
So think about it. Are you willing to spend the next 15 years caring for this dog? A dog is
Mm.
not a, a subject that an object that you get, and then when you get tired of it, you get rid of it. It's
Yes,
a
of course.
sentient being. So really, it's a 15-year responsibility, and you really should think about that before you get a dog. You should ask yourself some questions before you get a dog. You know, what's going to happen if I have to move houses? What's going to happen? Am I
Mm.
willing to look for a house that will allow my dog? You know, and or there's sometimes people think, oh, I want to get a dog, and they have rented the place, but they have not asked the person renting the place to them. And then they get the dog. And then when they find out, they say, well, you have to get rid of the dog. Animals are not allowed in here.
Mm.
So things like that happen. So really, a lot of things need to be thought of and questioned before you get a dog.
Mm.
So a lot of dogs would not get abandoned if people would do that. And then obviously you have other situations where there is a tragic um, thing in the family. Maybe they split up, or I don't know, some of them dies or whatever.
Mm.
I used to work actively in rescuing dogs and finding them homes. And I can remember we once had to take a dog back after 5 or 6 years because the woman got cancer and she was terminal.
Okay.
And then obviously, the partner was totally gone. He
Mm.
was, a total nerve wreck, and he was not able to care for the dog. So he
Mm.
contacted me, said, look, can you take the dog back? And then
Yes,
obviously we
of
took the dog
course.
back and found a really great new home for that dog.
Mm. So dog is it's like your family member, isn't it? It's like
Yes.
a child, something it has to be considered as a family member because it's it has its own feelings, it has its own, it can sense how you're feeling. And in terms of their behavior, it can express to you how unhappy maybe or happy maybe as well. So it is a dog is a family member at the end of the day. It's like a dog isn't just for Christmas, it's for life. And a lot of
Yes.
people unfortunately either don't consider that or things happen and unfortunately they can't keep the dog because of responsibility. Um, but dogs do can have a lot of a big positive impact on children, can't they? In terms of helping children with
Yes.
being empathetic, being calming, responsibility, all these different skills. So,
Yes.
sort of what in your line of work, what you've seen, what things do dogs actually help people with in terms of bettering that person, in terms of looking after maybe another human being or another animal or developing certain skills or being more empathetic? How do dogs help people in that sense?
Well, especially with children,
Mm,
children identify very much with animals, and especially with dogs, as I said, because dogs have this this way of sensing and smelling whatever is going on
mm.
in the child. And I used to teach animal communication for children.
Oh, wow.
And well, I teach animal communication for adults, but then
Mm,
I also had an idea of teaching animal communication for children, and I did that for a few years. And the children were from 5 to 12 years old,
okay.
and they were brought by the parents, and then the parents were asked to leave, and we had this course, like maybe 5, 6, 7 children, and I used to ask the children, well, what is it that, most of them had either a cat or a dog, like they had some kind of animal, and
Mm,
a lot of them had dogs. So I used to ask them, well, how did you how did you communicate with your animal, and what do you cherish, from your animal? And then a lot of them used to say, well, my animal just listens. It
oh, of
listens. I
course,
I can
yeah.
I can tell him everything, and
Mm,
he listens, and he is not judgmental.
mhm.
He just listens and is there. The animal is there for me. I can feel its presence. And let's be honest, if we look into families nowadays, everybody is either on the computer, on the laptop, on the mobile phone, watching TV, you know. I mean, come on, where's the interaction? And
Mm,
and you know, children need somebody that listens to them. Children need to be with somebody. And this somebody often is the animal, because animals live in the present moment. Animals live in the here and now.
mm.
Whereas we adults often are gone somewhere, either on the mobile phone. I mean, physically we are there.
But we're
Physically we
not.
are, but mentally we are somewhere completely else.
Mm.
And some animals bring us back to the present moment. Some animals, bring us back to the present moment. I once had a woman calling me and saying, well, my cat wants to wants me to pet her all the time. But then when I start petting, all of a sudden she scratches and bites me.
Oh, okay.
So I talked to the cat, and then the cat said, yeah, I do that when it gets too monotone because she's gone. And then when
Right. Okay, I
and
see.
then when I told that to the woman had to admit, yes, that's true.
Mm.
And then I had another person calling me, and they said, I when I go for a walk with my dog all of a sudden just runs off and like disappears. And then I don't want that to happen. So when I talked to the dog told me, well, she wanders off mentally. Why am I supposed to stay there?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
animals can intuitively tell when you're not there mentally. You may be
definitely,
physically there,
yes,
but you're not there mentally.
exactly. My first dog, Tony, he used to walk a couple of steps behind me when he was off leash. And if I started to think about something, he would stop.
Oh.
And then, when I all of a sudden I would notice, oh, where's my dog? Where's my dog? Where's my dog? Like, where's my dog?
Mm.
And then I would look back and maybe he was 5, 10, 15 meters behind me, just waiting. And then once, I can't remember what I was thinking about, but I can remember when I turned around, he was about, like 100 meters back, sitting,
Mm.
and his head was sort of tilted, sort of thinking, how long's gonna take her until she finds out that I'm not following her?
Wow.
And then when I said, Tony, what are you doing there? Come here. He came running like crazy, so yay, now I've got her back.
Yeah. And
So,
animals are like
so
children. They need that attention.
yes,
They want
actually,
that
yes,
love and attention. Yeah.
that's why children and animals go so well together.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. That is so interesting. So what sort of things do you teach the children in your when you taught them animal communication?
Well, animal communication, telepathic animal communication is the
Mm.
language of the feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to go with your feelings, with your,
Mm.
with your intuition in some way. And when you tell a child, forget, you don't have to think about anything, just, shut off your mind and go with your feelings. They go like, oh, that's great. That's, that they love that.
Mm.
Tell that to an adult, and the adult would ask, how do I do that?
Mm.
Because adults are often in their head, they're thinking, they're in their head, and that's not working. And one of the reasons why that's not working is because the energy that our heart, irradiates is 5,000 times more intense than that of the brain.
Oh, okay. Wow, I didn't know
So,
that.
yeah, so that's that you can measure that.
Mm.
So that's why it is so important to feel when you are communicating, not just with animals, when you can say, let's say, you can even tell when you listen to somebody singing. If you listen to somebody sing a song and they sing the song perfectly technically correct, but there's no feeling behind it, the song doesn't reach you.
Yes, of
But
course. Yes.
but when somebody sings a song and maybe they don't, get some tones, notes correct, but the person puts their whole heart into the song, that song touches you.
Hmm.
So it's so important to bring in the heart. And animals bring in the heart. Dogs bring in the heart,
Hmm.
Every animal brings in the heart. They live from the heart.
Yeah, that's
That's
really
another thing.
important.
That's another thing we can learn from them.
Hmm. And yeah, that's another thing that us adults need to do more of, I think, because you're right, we live in our heads too much. We don't really consider our heart too often, unfortunately. But Paloma, you have a podcast, don't you, to do with animal communication?
Right.
Could you tell us a
Yes,
bit
it's
more about your podcast, please?
yeah, it's called Animal Empathy,
Yeah.
and it's about animal communication, but I also have uh, uh, guests, and we talk about different different subjects,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's really very very interesting because communication is so broad. It's a really you can communicate on so many different levels,
Hmm.
and yeah, empathy is so important that we have empathy for the animals, for ourselves, but also for each other.
Yes, of course. And I suppose that's how kids develop that empathy from a young age. If they do have a pet, no matter what animal it is, they're looking after that pet and they're being empathetic towards that. That's how they can develop that empathy for them to become more of
Yes.
an empathetic human being as they get older.
Yeah. And one of the things that unfortunately happens very often is, children, they automatically connect with the animals. Like
Mm.
we come into this world knowing how to communicate through our feelings. Now, the problem is that when we do that as babies, our environment doesn't react. They, yeah, sometimes react intuitively, but we very quickly find out we have to learn these strange sounds in order to communicate with the outer world, because otherwise it's not going to work. However, children know that they can communicate like that with animals, and they do, up to a certain age. Now, what often happens is, when,
Mm.
for example, 3, 4 year old says to somebody in the family, the doggy has a pain in the tummy, like, because the child notices that,
Oh.
because the animal has told the child that, and
Mm.
then they don't pay attention. They say, "Oh yeah, sure, yeah, no, don't worry, don't worry. That's I'm sure he's fine. I'm sure he's fine." So they don't take the child seriously. And really, we should take children more seriously when they sense something from an animal. Take them seriously, because then it's probably the animal communicating with the child on
Mm,
another
of course,
level.
yeah. Because they're intuitively connected to the animal more
Yes,
so than an adult could be.
yes, unless we learn how to do it.
Mm. Yes.